Hello, hi, and welcome. If you're new here, my name is Sarah, and this is Wicked Reading. Thank you so much for joining me today. I truly appreciate it. We are keeping it pretty casual today because, as you can tell, my hair's up in a messy bun. I'm not feeling so great today, but I'm pushing through because I really want to talk to you guys about the worst books that I read in 2023. So, of course, disclaimer, if you loved these books, I'm so happy for you. There's a couple books on this list that are very loved, so I am absolutely in the minority of not enjoying them. So if you love them, I'm so happy for you. A lot of these come down to personal preference for me. I'm going to start by sharing some of the books that I DNF'd because there were 4 books that I hard DNF'd because I knew if I continued reading them, they were going to end up being like a 1-star read. I was absolutely so annoyed with these books or disgusted by these books, and I just could not go on, and I knew I wasn't going to like them by the end. If a book's already feeling like a 1 or a 2-star to me, it's not going to make a comeback. It's not going to jump to a 5-star or a 4-star, at most maybe a 3, and that's just not worth pushing through in my opinion. So I will talk about books that I DNF'd because I did get a decent way through them. All of the books that I'm going to talk about, I got either like 40 to 50% of the way into them before I DNF'd them, so I gave them a good shot. And then after that, we'll talk about the worst books that I read that I actually finished in 2023. So 3 of the books that I DNF'd are all within the same genre that I was trying to explore. I'm still going to try other books, but I've yet to find a book that worked for me that I didn't DNF. And these all land in the category of dark romance, of like smutty dark romance. So the first book that I DNF'd was A Ship of Bones and Teeth by Karina Hall or Karina Halley. I'm not sure how to say her name. This is like a retelling of The Little Mermaid, but it is like a dark romance retelling where The Little Mermaid is like an adult. And yeah, so it's like a smutty pirate book, and I just couldn't do it. I couldn't do it any longer. I do have a vlog of this book where I talk about it, and I get into pretty decent detail, not like spoilery detail, I don't think, but pretty decent detail as to my gripes with this book because it was really getting under my skin. I needed to rant about it a little bit. So you can check that out if you want to hear more thoughts about it. Pretty much to sum it up from what I remember is it was just very cringy. The motives and actions of the characters didn't make any sense to me. The writing was not great, and just some of the stuff was just ridiculous. Obviously, there's an element of suspending your disbelief with really any fiction book, especially when there's like fantasy and stuff involved, which this book has some like fantasy magic stuff going on. But it was just like more so related to the characters and just what they were doing versus what they were supposed to care about. Anyways, so the characters just were inconsistent, to say the least. The dialogue was horrible. The writing wasn't good. And then the final straw for me was there was a moment where pretty much the exact same element was used from a different book that I read by Karina Halley or Karina Hall, and that was just it. Reused material, no thank you. So at that point I just gave up because I was already not enjoying the book. I did not care what happened to the characters. I did not care where the story went. So I gave it up. Moving on. In the same vein, very similar because I read it for the same reason, is Captive of the Pirate King by Rebecca F. Kenny. This one was kind of more so an accidental DNF. I was reading it on KU and it was fine, but like, again, just like a stupid pirate smut romance. And in this, the main girl is pretty much pretending to be a boy on this pirate ship to go rescue her brother, I believe, from what I remember. And that just, I don't think I like that. I don't think I like any trope where it's somebody pretending to be not just somebody else, but like a different gender. It just like makes it weird whenever any sexual tension or anything like that comes up. Real quick, editing Sarah here. I feel like I should clarify, because I really did not make it obvious at all, that the main character is not like a transgender person. They are simply pretending to be a different gender. She's pretending to be a boy because she's on the ship with a bunch of men pirates. So it's kind of like a thing of safety. So, yeah. But it is revealed pretty early on, like quite early on, that the male love interest wouldn't care even if she were a boy. So I guess like it doesn't necessarily matter. It just felt weird to me for some reason. I don't know. But then I was thinking about it, and Milan, I love Milan, and Milan doesn't make me feel weird. But then again, I'm not going into Milan like it's a kid's movie, so I didn't go into it knowing I was getting myself into like a spicy romance. So I think I think that it just wasn't done well in the book. Simply, the book just wasn't great. I just felt like I needed to clarify that, because this book was not trying to be like transgender rep. It was just a point of the plot, I don't know, to be quirky and cute, I guess, but I just didn't really like it. Anyways, back to the original footage. The writing wasn't like as bad. It was a little bit more consistent, but like still not great. It's still a smutty pirate romance, so it still wasn't great. And I just like didn't care. I guess this one, it could have maybe gotten like a 2 or 3 star for me, but I wasn't really enjoying it. I didn't really care. And I just forgot about it, quite frankly. So it was kind of more so an accidental DNF, but kind of very similar to A Ship of Bones and Teeth. I don't think pirate romances, I think that that's going to be a very specific book that will work for me. Another thing I forgot to say with A Ship of Bones and Teeth, something that kept annoying the piss out of me is they kept reiterating how clean these pirates were, how hygienic and clean they were. Like, just say it once and we get it. I think I read that like 5 or 6 times in the course of the pages that I read, and I didn't even finish the book. I'm sure it would have came up a few more times. So yeah, just again, not great writing. I don't like the trope that it was doing. If that's even like a trope, I don't really know. I'm not as familiar with the romance stuff, to be fair. But yeah, dialogue was cringy. Moving on. Another one that was a dark romance was Haunting Adeline. Who is this by? I don't even remember. Hold on, let me look it up. So this is like a super popular one, and so I really thought that this was gonna be it. H.D. Carlton is the author. This is one that's so popular that I questioned some things, because this was just like not good. Not good either. The writing was not good. What kept taking me out of the story is there were so many unnecessary swear words. I'm talking like 5 to 10 swear words per page. I think if you cut all of the swear words out of this book, it would be at least like 50% shorter. It was just so unnecessary and kept taking me out of the writing. It works okay, and it's more like effective and impactful if you throw in some swear words once in a while to really, you know, exemplify what a character's feeling and their passionate emotions. But it was just so overkill that it felt like when a middle schooler learns about swear words and they're just using them to use them and be like badass. It's like, it was so many. And I'm like a person that swears a lot in my day-to-day, in my normal atmosphere. I do swear a decent amount, but like reading it that much is just unnecessary and lazy writing and just fills the page with nothingness. That and the story, I kind of did like the idea. I didn't tell you guys what this is about. From what I remember, at least, I pretty much just went in knowing it was about like a stalker-ish dark romance. That's what I went in knowing. And I guess it is like that. I don't really remember details, to be honest, so I can't even tell you more than that. But the stalker has like a whole separate character arc, and we do get chapters of his POV, which I hated. I absolutely hated it. Every time we were going to go to one of his POVs, I was just like not excited. I was so annoyed that I had to read from his POV. I didn't like him as a character, not because he's a stalker, believe it or not, I didn't care about that part. What irritated me, which is kind of messed up, I know, but what irritated me is that he is like this stalker, but he has like redeeming factors because he like saves people from human trafficking and kids from being in unsavory and traumatic environments. So it was just so conflicting to me because he has this good side, this really good side, but then he just like throws all of that out the window to be this like crazy stalker. And it's like either be one or the other to me. It's like if you want it to be a stalker romance, is it dark? Yeah. It's dark, but like then don't try to redeem him with this other stuff because now we're muddying the waters and I don't like it. I don't like that. I know that that's kind of like more of a hot take because I think people want the guys to have like redeeming factors and redeeming characteristics to make the romance not feel, I don't know, feel okay, feel like there's good parts of it, I guess. I don't know. To me, it was just weird because it was just like he was a total conflict. His whole character was a complete contradiction of everything. So I didn't like him or his POVs. I think I would have liked this book better if we just followed the girl. And then this like guy is just a complete mystery and we don't know anything about him. So I ended up just like DNFing it. I gave it up because I just wasn't finding any joy in it. I kept rolling my eyes about a lot of things. So there's that. So those were all the like dark romances I tried. I tried them and they just did not work. And then I do actually still own one physically and I was proud of myself for DNFing this because I own it physically. And that is Lost Souls by Poppy Z. Bright. I DNF'd this kind of recently, so you might have seen it. This is the only DNF I remembered to talk about in a wrap-up because I have it physically. All the other ones were on KU. So as soon as I decided I was done with them, I deleted them. And I just forgot that they existed. And I didn't even mark them on my Goodreads except for Haunting Adeline, I think. So coming into 2024, I'm going to be way better about marking and remembering the books that I DNF. And I'm going to also remember when in the story that I DNF'd it. This one I still have the bookmark in. I DNF'd it at page 143. I got a decent amount into it, probably like 35-40%. And it just wasn't for me. Pretty much the final straw was to begin, this book's about vampires. And that's really all I know. That's really all I got because pretty much everything that I read was kind of just following people, vampires and humans, and they were eventually going to cross paths. And all these individuals have very dark demons and very dark issues that they're all dealing with. So it's a pretty dark book. What did it for me was the 4th or 5th scene that involved very erotically written incest / sexual activity involving a child. So I'm not gonna read it. I don't mind necessarily if those aspects are part of a character and don't necessarily happen so detailed on page. The problem with this is it was so erotically written that it just made me so uncomfortable and it's so extremely taboo, which granted, I do think I might have liked this book had I read it in like high school because I was really into reading anything taboo, like Flowers in the Attic, stuff like that. Anything taboo I would have eaten up in high school at 27 years old. It makes me so uncomfortable now and I don't like it. So I DNF'd for this reason. This is a very beloved book as well. It just didn't work for me. I will still try to read Exquisite Corpse. I know that that's also very dark, so we'll see how that works. I don't know if it's dark in the same ways that this book was dark. I should say Poppy Z. Bright is a pen name. This person no longer goes by that name in their everyday life. They go by Billy Martin. So just in case if you're looking into it, they don't go by this name, but their books are still published under this name. So anyways, DNF that. It's just like personal qualms. I don't want to read about that. So anyways. So moving on to the books that I actually did finish. So most of these books I gave 2 stars. I'm typically pretty forgiving of a reader. So unless it's like super offensive or like pisses me off to no end. Most books, even if I really don't like them, are just gonna get 2 stars because I acknowledge the fact that they wrote a book. I don't seek out books that I think would be 1 stars. Again, with the books I DNF, those probably would have ended up being 1 stars. So the other books that I have here all ended up being 2 stars. We're gonna start with a bang because this first book is one that people absolutely love. And I had super, super high expectations for, so that probably didn't help. And I do thoroughly love this author. I still love all of her other books, but this one just did not do it for me, and that was Cackle by Rachel Harrison. Pretty much this has to do with a woman who is going through a breakup after like a very long-term relationship. She's one of those people who just chronically is in relationships. So she's newly single against her wishes pretty much, and she kind of needs to figure out what she's doing now. So she ends up taking a job in a small town where she meets this woman named Sophie, and the townspeople treat Sophie very strange. So that's where it goes. And it's like a witchy story. So you know that going into it. The main focus of this book is on our character Annie and on Annie and Sophie's relationship. 2 things of which I really did not like. I did not like Annie as a character at all. She irritated me to no end. Pissed me off so much, time and time again. She's a very dependent person, and she just does not do or react to things the way that she should or the way that I would. So I just like kept getting annoyed. I'm like, why aren't you saying anything? Why aren't you doing anything? Like stuff just kept happening to her, and she just didn't do anything or say anything about it. And it just like made me so mad. And then her relationship with Sophie is just very unequal. It was a very weird power dynamic between the two. Their friendship to me was very weird. It felt very love bomby, and it was supposed to be the good thing about this book, I think, and it just made me feel icky. It was just like not how I like my relationships to be, my friendships to be. I like them to be very equal. We're both giving and taking, that kind of thing, and the relationship just felt unequal, felt very weird, felt love bomby. It was like a walking red flag to me. So I just like couldn't get on board with any of it. And even the whole ending where it's supposed to be Annie, character growth and like coming into herself, it still did not do it. It still did not do it. She still ended up in a relationship where she's very dependent on the other person, like emotionally. And I didn't like it. But the writing isn't bad. The writing is Rachel Harrison. It did give very cozy vibes. There was moments that felt kind of like Gilmore Girls, and it was very autonomous, and I did like the atmosphere, and the writing was good. There were some like moments of the writing that I liked, but overall I hated the character and I hated the friendship, and that's what most of this book is. So it was just a total loss for me, but a lot of people love this book. Do not let me stray you away from it, but didn't work for me. This next one is by far my most disappointing read because the first book was actually my favorite books of 2023. So this one was a complete and utter disappointment, letdown, hated it. And that's Daisy Haites by Jessa Hastings. This book made me so mad, and quite frankly, the only reason it has 2 stars is because it's attached to Magnolia Parks. This book was not it. This book was so irritating to me. I was so mad because Daisy Haites, I was so intrigued by her as a character in Magnolia Parks. So I was so excited to read a book from her perspective because her family is within the crime realm, and it's like white collar crime, like stealing art, I think, stuff like that. But I was very interested in that and seeing her relationship with Christian that we kind of get a glimpse at in Magnolia Parks. But it was just such a disappointment. First of all, the writing, what happened? The writing was not good. The writing was horrible because not only was there so much medical stuff that was like just so incorrect. I'm in the medical field, so if you know anything about like medical stuff, this book is so annoying because it tries to have Daisy be like a medical student, But if you're gonna have a character that's supposed to be smart and be a medical student, make them say stuff that's correct. Okay? I feel like absolutely no research went into medical stuff. I think that they just Googled terms and was like, yeah, let's do that. And in the writing, there's a bunch of in-text citations or whatever, annotations, footnotes, whatever you call them. Like, and it was so unnecessary. So there's like all these footnotes. And then so I'd have to jump to the bottom and read these footnotes that added nothing at all. They were so pointless, and it made it so annoying to read, to have to like do this and like jump down to just read a little quip, a little like cute little funny quote or something. Like they weren't footnoting anything important, any type of like actual information or history, or like even with the medical stuff, like there was nothing like that. It was like a side thought of the character, which just easily could have been the next sentence. I don't understand why she felt the need to do that. I hated it. It made a horrible reading experience, just like physically with my eyes. And then most of this book is reliving a lot of the stuff that happened in Magnolia Parks. And then there'd be like a chapter jump, and it'd be like info dump of stuff that they did within the time period of like the last chapter, and be like, over the last month we did this. Why didn't we just do that? We should have like glossed over the moments that we already read about in Magnolia Parks, and then thoroughly read and lived through the new moments. Instead, it was like the opposite, which made no sense. This book was so disappointing. This book was such a letdown. There's so many things I could complain about with this book, but I will leave it at that. I hated it. I really did. And I am just really hoping that the third installment, which goes back to Magnolia Parks, will be everything that Magnolia Parks was and more. The fourth book is jumping back to Daisy Parks, or Daisy Haites. The fourth book is jumping back to Daisy Haites. So I may or may not read that one. I own it. I'll have to talk to some people who I know loved Magnolia Parks but hated Daisy Haites along with me, and see if and when they read the fourth one, how they felt about that one, if it's worth my time. I mean, cover's cool. I love a collage like that. Oh, speaking of, they redid the covers to the series. Who told them to do that? They are so boring and so ugly now. To go from this to this, are you kidding? Is this a joke? The last Daisy Haites one is stunning. That's like my favorite one of the batch. Beautiful, gorgeous, love it. And then this. How are you gonna do that? Anyways, so not only was that book bad, the new covers are horrible. Okay, moving on. I did get rid of the rest of these books, but all the rest of these books I did initially read physically. So this one is another hot take. Most people love it. It is Dark Matter by Blake Crouch. It does a sci-fi trope I didn't like. And that's pretty much the end of that. A lot of people love the writing. I didn't think it was that great. That's literally all I have to say on that. I don't discourage you from reading it, especially if you want to get into sci-fi. It was not for me, period. Let's see, I have my written list since I got rid of a lot of these. Next we have Edenville. I'm going to keep this one brief because I read this pretty recently and really talked about it a lot. So this book follows one of our main characters, Cam, who wrote a book based on a dream he had. It doesn't really go anywhere, but then he eventually gets offered a temporary teaching job at a writing program in Edenville. And his girlfriend is actually from an area close to that, and she was like, you know what, Edenville is very weird. A lot of people go missing. Weird stuff happens in Edenville. I don't think we should go. But they go anyway, and weird stuff starts happening. So this book is one that just like, again, was just not for me. It's very hard cosmic, and I'm somebody who has not read that much cosmic yet, so starting with that one was pretty rough. It's very hard cosmic, and it's very gross, very disgusting, and with a lot of liquids that I really didn't like. I don't like that. It just felt like a guy telling me gross stuff to gross me out. It didn't feel always like necessary, like at all. There was in my vlog where I read an excerpt where the chapter opens up with a side story about a ball boil. that it added nothing. It added nothing to the story other than to gross me out for a second. So I just didn't like it. I didn't like the writing. I didn't like any of the characters. There were some elements to the story that I did like. There was some stuff with sunflowers that I liked, and there was some stuff with these old ladies of the town that I did really like. But the things that I liked were just so outshined by so many other elements that just made the story very messy to me. And I didn't really vibe with it. But if you want to read more hard cosmic and you like really weird books, because I will say this book is extremely weird, so if you like that, I would say give it a go. It's not a very long book, and it reads pretty fast. I read it very fast, but mostly because I was like trying to get through it, honestly. But it does read pretty fast, and if you like cosmic, weird, gross stuff, this hits the nail on the head for that. So I don't discourage anybody from reading it. It just definitely wasn't for me. Okay, I only have 2 other books to talk about. I feel like 2023 was a pretty decent reading year for me, and I was a very forgiving reader. Now, I will say, going into 2024, I feel like, I don't know if I'm being way more critical or I'm just having a really bad streak right now. It is currently January 14th. We're halfway into the month, and I have had so many 2 and 2.5 star reads so far, and it's kind of crushing my soul a little bit. I don't know if I'm becoming more of a critical reader or I'm just like not picking up ones that I should be, but it's a rough go. But last year, 2023, I feel like I was definitely much more forgiving, and 2024 is probably going to be much more brutal. But so moving on, more books that just really didn't work for me. The next one is House at the Bottom of the Lake by Josh Malerman. It's a short story. Well, it's like a novella. So it's really quick. It's a YA horror, which I didn't know going into it, but makes total sense after you finish it. It was just boring. It was just boring. I wasn't pulled into the atmosphere that I think it was attempting to make. I just didn't get anything from the story, and the one thing that really took me out of the story, these 2 kids, they're like 16, 17 years old or something, they end up like having some activity in the water, and there's like a description, not once, but twice, of what this teenage boy's splooge looks like in the water. And again, I don't want to hear about little boys or like teenage boys, because he's not a little boy, but like teenage boys' fluids. No, don't need to hear about it. It was an interesting concept, I guess, but it just didn't do anything for me, except those 2 parts that grossed me out. So again, don't like fluids from men, so moving on. I'm sorry, I feel like I've just been not saying much, but I can't really complain too much with most of these because a lot of these books I read kind of a while ago. If I don't like a book, I'm not like thinking about it that much, so I know that there were probably a lot more reasons why I didn't like these books, but you just like forgive and forget, and I definitely forgot about a lot of these books. But this next book is by far the one that I read like the farthest ago. I think at this point I actually read it a year ago. I think I read it in January, but maybe not. I don't know. Don't quote me. And that is Lady of the Lake by Andrzej Sapkowski. I read the entire Witcher series between 2022 and 2023. And this was the final book in like the main series. There's a book after it that is technically, I think, additional short stories, but this is the final book in the main series. And it was so disappointing. Now, I found out after the fact that the Witcher series is technically like literary fantasy. I'm not going to explain to you guys what that means because I can't. I don't really know how to be quite honest, but pretty much it just means that it's not going to fulfill the tropes that you expect it to fulfill, and it just goes in a direction that you don't really expect. And that is exactly what this book did. I don't even know how much I can say about this book without giving spoilers away since it is the final, but let me just say that what pissed me off the most about this book, granted there's some really good battle descriptions in this book, But the characters that we care about and the characters that we've been following for the past 5 to 7 books, depending on if you read the short story collections, the way that their stories ended were so unsatisfying. At the end, these characters were making choices that just made no sense to what they were doing the whole time, to their purpose for this journey. They were it made me so mad. And like, I understand now why what they did didn't make any sense, because it was supposed to be literary, but I didn't know at the time, and it made me so mad. The choices that these characters made, the actions that they did, just conflicted with everything else that this series was leading up to and that this series did along the way. Now, there's a person or a character in this book that has magical abilities. And can I just say that this character was done so dirty? I'm not going to say, because I don't want to give spoilers of specifically who it was, but they were done so dirty. Why have magic or these like abilities and not use them? Or like not do anything interesting with them? The magic and what ended up being unique aspect to this character just ended up being so lackluster and lame. Oh my goodness. And I don't know. I just remember when I finished this book, I ranted to my husband for so long. I have like a long list of stuff I hated from this book. And I had like very specific gripes with this book, which I no longer remember, to be honest. But yeah, it was just so annoying to end the series with that, because I was having such a mixed time with that series to begin with. Some of the books would be pretty good, and I'm pretty sure I gave Baptism of Fire 5 stars because I really liked the aspect with like Yennefer and the other women witches pretty much. But some of the books were like 2 stars, and they were super misogynistic and weird moments where I'm learning about the color of a mermaid's areolas and nipples, and it was just so unnecessary. So I was already having such a mixed, wild, emotional ride with these books, and to end it with that just made me almost regret reading the whole thing, honestly. When it comes to this series, I say stick to the video games and stick to the TV series. That's all the books that I have to talk about. So yeah, not a very positive video, but I feel like it needs to be done. It feels incomplete. I like to have a culmination of things. I like lists of things. So I like to have a top list. I like to have a bottom list. It's just who I am as a person. I like to have books grouped together. Again, if you loved any of these books, I am so happy for you. I wish I did. In the comments down below, let me know what books you hated. If you read any of these books and if you disagree with me on my opinions of them, let me know. But as always, thank you so much for spending some of your time with me while I sit down and talk about books. If you haven't yet, please give the video a like, subscribe for future content, turn on the bell notification, all the fun YouTube things that help your girl out, and I will catch you guys in the next video. Bye!